Okay, so starting on the first worksheet for 2, 3, and 3, 4. Number 7. So review of solving equations, right? We're solving for our variable. Our variable here is t. Now this negative sign right here, that negative goes with the 3, not the 5. So this is a negative 3, and this is actually a positive 5. So don't let that negative sign throw you off. I like to draw a line when I'm solving equations. It just helps separate things a little. So if we want to get this t value all by itself, we need to move the plus 5 by doing the inverse or the opposite and subtracting 5 on both sides first. So if we do 32 and we subtract 5, that leaves us with 27. 5 minus 5 here is 0. That's why we subtracted 5 on both sides, so we had 0. And then when you bring down your t value, don't forget it is a negative 3t. So a lot of times when we're solving equations as review, it's those little things, the negatives, what's negative or positive, that can throw you off and make something wrong. Now solving for t to finish up, we are multiplying by the negative 3, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 3. 27 divided by negative 3, positive divided by a negative is negative 9, equals negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, not 0. So we have 1t. Green is kind of hard to read, sorry. So we get t equals negative 9 for number 7. So if you've done number 7, you should get negative 9. If you're not, there you go. Whoops. So looking at number 11, got a word problem, so we need to write an equation and do our solving. So Jennifer is saving money to buy a bike. The bike costs $245. That is your total. That's how much money she needs to buy the bike. She has $125 saved. Okay? So if we think of our equal sign as how much she has and how much she needs $245. That has to be her total. She has $125 saved. So she has $125. And then it says, and each week she adds $15. So to her $125, we're adding $15 each week. So we're doing that 15 multiple times. So that's where our variable will go. So every single week, we're adding $15. So that x variable is representing weeks. So she has $125. She adds $15 each week. And she needs that to equal, she needs her total to be $245. Once you have your equation, then we can solve like normal. So if we go through and solve there, I want to solve for the x value. So I am going to, so there's my x value. I'm going to subtract 125 on both sides. 125 minus 125 is 0. That's the whole point of subtracting it. Bring down 15x equals, and if we subtract here, we get 120. Divide by 15. And we should get that x is 8. Now, since it's a word problem, I should label what's that 8 representing. And we said up here that the x is representing weeks, so it's 8 weeks. So it's going to take her 8 weeks to save up enough money to buy that bike that she wants. All right, on the back side, number 20. Number 20 is a great one to go through. We're solving for x. And maybe what's throwing you off is you have this 3 in the denominator. Okay, so we need to undo the 3 first. What does this fraction bar tell us the operation is? What does that mean? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide? It means divide. Okay, so if this fraction bar means divide, the opposite of divide, how do we undo dividing? We multiply. So we need to multiply both sides by that 3. And I'm going to put the 3 in parentheses next to it. So both sides get a 3. Now on this first side, the 3 divided by 3, that is 1. So that eliminates the 3 in the denominator, and you're just left with that 4 plus x that's in the numerator. And then we have our greater than sign. And then if I multiply, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. We're still solving for x here. So I'm going to move the 4. It's a positive 4, so we're going to subtract 4 on both sides. Bring down x is greater than, if I take negative 12 and subtract 4, I end up at negative 16. X is all by itself. So there's number 20. Very good one to talk about with having to multiply both sides. 25 also has a fraction in it, except this fraction is separate from the 8 that's in front of it. So if we look at this 8 here, it's separate from the fraction. So this is a positive 8. So the first thing I'm going to do, there's my inequality sign, is subtract 8 on both sides. So I get negative 2/3 z is greater than 2 minus 8 is negative 6. Now I'm going to do this next step in 2 steps. I think it's easier to understand that way. There is one step you can do, multiplying by the reciprocal, but I want to show you the pieced apart version. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this 3 on the bottom, and then we're going to do the exact same thing as we did for number 20. So to undo the 3 here in the denominator for number 20, we multiplied both sides by 3. We're going to do the exact same thing here. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. So that eliminates the 3 in the denominator, because 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now I have left on this side negative 2z. So I'm just going to bring down, I don't want to use yellow, negative 2z is greater than, and then negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. Now I'm multiplying z times negative 2, so I'm going to divide by a negative 2. When you divide by the negative 2, here we get 1, so I get 1z. On the other side, negative 18 divided by negative 2 is positive 9. And we divided by a negative, so our inequality sign needs to flip around. That's one of the rules with inequalities, if you divide by a negative. And the reason for that is because when you divide by a negative, it changes a positive to a negative and a negative to a positive. So if you notice here, this negative 18 became a positive 9 when I divided. So it changed it from a negative to positive 9. So that's why my inequality sign needs to flip around. So that's a really good one to review there, with having to flip your inequality sign around. All right, so on now worksheet 2.4, the second worksheet, we're going to go through number 4 on the front side. Here's our equal sign, if I get my pen right here. So in this lesson, we talked about combining like terms and having a variable on both sides. So if we only look at the first side here, you have 3 terms, so you should be able to combine something. Now, there's only one x term. What number should go in front of that x?
1.
A 1, so that's a negative 1x. But the other 2 do not have x values, so those 2 can be combined together. So I can combine 5 minus 2, and I get 3. And my minus 1x is just going to stay a minus 1x because there's nothing that we can combine it with. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. On the other side, there's one x value, that positive 4x. So I can't combine that with anything, but I also have 2 values that are constants that do not have an x that I can combine together. So 3 plus 5, I get 8, and then I just bring down that plus 4x. Now you have an x still on both sides. I would move the x value first. You could move the 3, you could move the 8. This is where there's multiple ways to finish up the problem. I always move the variable first, so I would look and I say, I have a negative 1x, I have a positive 4x. In my opinion, it's easiest to move the smaller one. It's totally up to you which one you move, as long as you do your math correct. So if I have a negative 1x here, to move it completely to the other side, I want to make it 0. So I'm going to add 1x and add 1x on both sides. Because now negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So that's gone on that side. We still have our 3. And on the other side, we still have our 8. And then if I combine those x values together, 4 plus 1 is a positive 5x. So you may not have taken the exact same steps that I have here, but you may still get the same answer, and that's fine. Now the x is on one side, so I need to move the 8 away from that side, so I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides. 3 minus 8 is negative 5, equals 8 minus 8 is 0. We've got a positive 5x left there. And to finish up, I have 5 times x, so I'm going to divide both sides by 5. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. That leaves us with just x. And I can flip that around so x is first, so x equals negative 1 on that one. Going to number 8 on the front. So we have parentheses. Parentheses right away mean we need to distribute. So whether we're doing order of operations or we're solving, parentheses always comes first. So when you distribute, remember you multiply. So I'm going to multiply 6 times x, which is 6x. 6 times positive 7 is positive 42. And then everything else just comes down. So minus 20 just moves down, equals 6x. That all stays the same. Now, if you look at your individual sides here, there's 3 terms and 2 of them can be combined. These 2 do not have an x value with them, so they can be combined together. So just bring down your 6x. If we take 42 and subtract 20, we're left with 22. And then 6x on the other side. Now I have an x value on both sides. Now they're the same, so it doesn't matter which one you choose. So I'm going to just move the first one. So I'm going to move that red one. So if I subtract 6x and subtract 6x, this is a great problem to go through. Here, 6 minus 6 is 0, so I don't write anything. I'm left with 22. And then again, 6 minus 6 is 0, and there's nothing there to write, so I'm just going to write a 0 there. No x. 0x is 0. So in this situation, we have no x value left. So we have 2 options. When you are in this situation, your 2 options are, if your statement is true, that means any number can work. So we say all real numbers, which is this R, kind of funny looking R symbol, which just means all real numbers. That means any number will work as a solution. Okay, that's your first option. Your second option is if your statement is false. If your statement is false, that means there is nothing that will work, so that is a no solution. So my 2 choices for answers here, since there's no x, is all real numbers or no solution. Which one would this be? Is this a true or false statement? Does 22 equal 0? No, they're not the same. This is a false statement. So your answer for this one is no solution. Awesome question. Very good question there. So 13 on the back side, we need to write an equation and answer it with a solution. We have a number decreased by 30, so there's an important word, is the same as 14 minus 3 times the number. All right, let's go one at a time. But first, I like to decide where the equal sign goes. And the equal sign in this case is where it says is the same as. So here's where my equal sign is going to split apart my sentence. So on the first side over here, we have a number decreased by 30. So a number is what we don't know. You can use any variable you want to. I normally use x. Maybe if you've learned this before, you use n for number. It doesn't matter. But a number, that's what we're trying to find. So that's our variable x. What does decreased mean we're doing? Subtracting. Very good. So decreased means we are subtracting. So it's decreased by 30. So on the first side of my equal sign there, I have x minus 30. X decreased or a number decreased by 30. Then I have my equal sign. Now let's work on the other side. So we have 14 minus, we know minus means subtract again. 3 times the number. So we have 14 minus, and then for the number we're using x, and if we want to say 3 times that, we would say 3x. Perfect. So I'm going to take my kind of chicken scratch here, and I'm going to write out my equation. So from that, my equation should be x minus 30 equals 14 minus 3x. And then for the solution, we just need to solve it. So let's go through real quick and solve. We've got an x on both sides. Now in this case, which x value is smaller? We've got 1 and we've got -3. So the negative is technically smaller. You can certainly move the 1. It does not matter. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Add 3x. If you subtracted 1x, you'll get the exact same answer. Don't worry about it. So here, 1x plus 3x is 4x. Bring down your minus 30 equals. Bring down your 14. And then -3 plus 3 is 0. So that's gone. Next thing I'll do to solve for x is add the 30 over. I'm going to have to move my work. So I've got 4x, 30 minus, or -30 plus 30 is 0, equals 14 plus 30 is 44. And divide by 4 to solve. Okay, moving to worksheet 2, 3, and 3, 5, which is the third one. Number 5 on the front side. So with number 5, you have that 5 in the denominator, and you see it there 3 different times, but it's the same number in the denominator. So we can do the same thing that we did with that 3 that was on the bottom, because this just means you're dividing by 5. Everything is being divided by 5. So if everything is being divided by 5, what's the opposite of that? Multiply. So we're going to multiply everything by 5. So to eliminate, we're going to multiply, we're going to multiply by 5 here, we're going to multiply by 5 here, and we're going to multiply by 5 there. And on every single one of them, 5 divided by 5 is 1, so here I'm left with 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1, here I'm left with a minus x, a minus 1x. Equals 5 divided by 5 is 1, and I'm just left with a -2. So essentially, if I multiply everything by 5, I get rid of that 5 in the denominator, and now I have a much nicer looking problem. So there's my equal sign. I only see x in one spot, so we need to move this one right here. Now that one is a positive one. The negative goes with the 1x. So if that's a positive one, we need to subtract 1 on both sides. Sorry, I gotta get rid of that yellow. Let's make it orange. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Bring down your -1x. And then -2 minus 1 is -3. To solve for x, divide by that -1. We get -1 divided by -1 is 1x, and then -3 divided by negative, 2 negatives makes it what? Positive. So +3 should be your answer there. Very good question. So if we go down to number 7, let's read through. 7 less than twice a number equals 19. So I see equals right here. That tells me that that's where my equal sign is going to be. And then the only thing after that equal sign is 19. So I know my equation is going to equal 19. I need to work on everything that's ahead of that. So all of this. Now here's where we need to be careful. Less than. Less than means we're going to do what? Add or subtract? Subtract. It gets confusing when we're working with inequalities because we think we want maybe the less than sign there. This less than means subtract. And how much are we going to subtract? How much less than? 7 less than. So we're going to subtract 7 from, what are we subtracting it from? Twice a number, which we can say 2x. Now, I wrote that out in words on purpose because this does not mean 7 minus 2x. This is incorrect. Do not write that. I know it's very tempting to write that because that's the order that the words are. But we want to say that we're subtracting 7 from 2x. So I have 2x, and I am subtracting 7 from that. So there's the equation that you should have. Okay, it's really tempting to just write 7 less than means minus, twice a number means 2x. But that less than means we're subtracting 7. So we need the minus 7 after the 2x. So do not do 7 minus 2x. That would be bad. All right, real quick. I'd add 7 on both sides. I'd get 2x equals 19 plus 7, 26. And divide by 2. So it looks like I'd get x equals 13 for number 7. So 13 on the back side, we have parentheses, so we need to distribute to get rid of those parentheses. My equal sign this time is an inequality less than or equal to, so that's where my line can go to separate. When you distribute, remember you multiply. So on the front side here, I'm distributing the 5. 5 times 4 is 20. And then 5 times positive x is positive 5x. Is less than or equal to. And then over here, 3 times 2 is 6. And then don't forget to take that to the other number inside as well. So 3 times positive x is positive 3x. Okay, so now if we look at each side individually, 20 plus 5x here, I cannot combine those two. And then 6 plus 3x on the other side, I cannot combine those two. So we're going to move one of the x values. You could move the 20 or the 6 first. That's fine. I'm just going to move the x value first. So if we move the smaller x value, we've got a positive 3 and a positive 5. So 3 is smaller, right? So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. So I got 20, and then 5 minus 3 for x is a positive 2x, is less than or equal to. Bring down the 6, and then 3 minus 3 is 0, so I don't need anything there. Still focusing on the x value, we need to move that 20 next, so that's a positive 20. Let's subtract it over on both sides. So 20 minus 20 is 0. We've got a positive 2x is less than or equal to. And then 6 minus 20 is negative 14. Finish up by dividing by 2. Now here we're dividing by a positive 2. So as long as this number is positive, we do not need to change our sign. So I can keep it as less than or equal to. And then negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. And let's just do a quick graph on that. This will be one good one to review for graphing. So when you're graphing, put the number that you're working with. So put that negative 7. And then I like you to put one number that's bigger than negative 7. So that would be negative 6 because we're in the negatives. And then one number that's less than, so negative 8. Just gives a little bit of scale. So on negative 7, if I'm looking at less than or equal to, is that an open circle or is that a closed circle? That is a closed circle because of that equal to sign. So on negative 7, we're going to put a closed circle. We're going to color it in because it could include 7. It could equal 7. And then what does this mean? Less or greater? Less than. So we're going less than. You can show your less than however you want to. I like to just scribble it in and kind of shade it. Some people like to draw an arrow that goes backwards. Use whatever you want to as long as I can tell what it means.